Can faith shine without a spotlight? When a reporter tests Karoline's beliefs, her answer doesn't just stun him. It rewrites the rules of authenticity. This is no ordinary interview. This is a reckoning. A stark studio hums under harsh lights. Cameras whir, zeroing in. Karoline sits upright, her calm a quiet force against the coiled energy across from her. Michael, the reporter, leans forward, a predator's glint in his eye, fingers tapping his notes like a hunter sizing up prey. Michael, a journalist who thrives on breaking people, had Karoline in his sights. She was known for her faith, unshakable, deep, the kind that shaped her every move. It wasn't loud or adorned with trappings, but it was there, steady as a heartbeat. He'd studied her, a woman who'd faced storms and emerged stronger, her belief a compass through life's chaos. But today, he saw an opening. No cross, no symbols. To him, it was a crack to exploit, a chance to unravel her. The lights buzz as he signals the cameras to roll, his voice slicing through the room, smooth and smug. So, Karoline, you've spoken often about faith, how it's your foundation. But today, no cross? Seems like it's just for show. The accusation lands like a jab. Karoline's eyes hold steady, hands resting calm in her lap, fingers tracing the edge of her sleeve. An old habit from quieter days. A heartbeat of silence stretches. Michael waits for a flinch, a flicker of doubt. He'd seen it before in others, the moment insecurity cracks through a polished front. But not here. Her faith wasn't a badge pinned to her chest, or a sign hung for applause. It was her core, lived, not worn. She'd carried it since childhood, through a small town where she'd learned it wasn't about shouting from rooftops, but about helping a neighbor, listening through tears, standing firm when the wind howled. Michael assumed the lack of a cross meant weakness. He was wrong. Unfazed, she meets his gaze, her voice even and clear. I don't wear my faith to prove it to anyone. My actions speak louder than any cross I could hang around my neck. The words hit, simple but heavy, like stones settling into a still pond. Michael shifts, his smirk twitching. He leans in, sensing a fight. It's curious, though. You preach faith, but without the signs, maybe it's a facade. The challenge hangs, sharp and baiting. He wants a crack, a stumble, something to twist, a headline to scribble in his notebook. Karoline doesn't bite. She'd faced this before. Probes meant to rattle, questions wrapped in thorns. Years ago, she'd stood in a dusty church basement, defending her choice to help without preaching, her voice steady then as now. This wasn't about her pride. It was bigger. The silence grows, his discomfort rising as he adjusts his tie, a nervous tick betraying his cool. He presses again. Plenty of people wear their beliefs loud and live hollow. How do we know you're not one of them? Her posture shifts, subtle but firm, a spark lighting her eyes. Memories of late nights mending what others broke, unseen by any crowd. Faith isn't about what you think of me, Michael, she says, calm but piercing. It's about the good I do, seen or unseen. I'm not here for a show. The air thickens. Michael doubles down, voice harder, pen tapping faster. Actions, huh? But what about when they look selfish? When people can't tell if it's faith or just you chasing praise? Karoline's strength sharpens, though her tone stays soft, a steel thread beneath velvet. It's about the work I do, the difference I make, even if no one notices. I don't answer to the crowd. Michael's face darkens. He'd expected a softer target, someone to rattle with a well-aimed quip. Instead, her calm roots her deeper, a tree unbending in a gale. He scribbles something, then looks up, undeterred. He tries again, leaning forward, voice edged with grit. The world's seen enough of loud believers who fall short. How do we trust you're different? She doesn't flinch. I don't need your trust, she says, steady as ever. My faith isn't for you to measure. It's in how I live, day after day, choice after choice. Michael smirks, pushing harder. But when people can't see it, when they judge you, doesn't that bother you? No one's clapping for the quiet ones. She leans in now, her whisper cutting clean through his noise. If they judge me, that's their choice. I won't twist myself to fit their frame. That's faith, staying true, not bending to the spotlight. Michael falters. The smugness slips, his pen stilling. The room feels heavier, the air thick with something he can't name. He'd wanted a clash, a soundbite. Instead, he's caught in her clarity, a tide he can't swim against. She's not done. Her gaze holds him, unwavering, as she continues. People waste time weighing others' faith. How loud it is, what it wears, how it shines under lights. But real faith? It's quiet. It's loving when it's hard, forgiving when it hurts, lifting others when you're tired. That's what it looks like. Not a trinket, not a cheer. Michael mutters. I see. But his voice wavers, control slipping through his fingers like sand. Silence reigns, thick and alive. Karoline sits back, not victorious, but certain. A lighthouse in fog. Michael fumbles with his notes, bravado gone, his usual sharpness dulled. He'd come to break her, to peel back a mask. Instead, she's a mirror, reflecting his own thin assumptions, his need to see faith as a trophy. The camera catches it, his unease, her peace, a contrast sharp as a blade. He tries one last jab, voice tight. So, you think the world should just accept that faith doesn't need to be seen? That's a little convenient, isn't it? No proof, no accountability. She pauses, letting the question breathe, then answers, soft but unyielding. Faith isn't a performance, Michael. It's not a costume or a cheer for you to judge. It's in my heart, my choices, not a sign for you to clap at or critique. The words land hard, a quiet thunder. Michael blinks, speechless, his jaw tightening. She goes on, her voice a steady pulse. If you can't see it without a symbol, that's your lens, not my burden. I've lived it through nights no one filmed, through hands I've held when no one watched. That's enough for me. The studio stills. The hum of cameras fills the void, a faint heartbeat under her words. Her faith, a quiet, living thing, floods the room, undeniable. Michael had prodded, mocked, dug for weakness, but she'd answered with something stronger. Truth, raw and steady. He leans back, lost, his game turned inside out. For a moment, Karoline glances away. A painting on the wall, a simple landscape from a quiet town she once knew. A place of peace, where she'd walked dirt roads after a storm, helping rebuild without a word of thanks. No need for validation, just the work. It steadies her now. She breathes, feeling the weight lift, a soft exhale against the studio's glare. This wasn't about defending herself to Michael or the lenses aimed at her. It was about living what she believed, years of it, etched into her bones, whether anyone understood. Faith wasn't a prop or a script. It was her anchor, her North Star. Michael's voice cracks the quiet, weaker now, a shadow of its former bite. Well, Karoline, I think we've covered it. The words fall flat, hollow, a retreat masked as closure. The crew stirs, packing up, footsteps echoing in the hush. The tension dissolves into something reverent, almost sacred. Karoline rises, a faint smile tracing her lips. Not pride, just presence. She'd shared her soul, not for him, not for the audience, but for herself because that's who she was. As she steps off set, the producer intercepts her, voice low, almost awed. I've seen a lot of interviews, decades of them. That was something else. You flipped it, changed the whole room. She nods, gentle but firm, her eyes soft with a knowing calm. It's not about flipping anything. It's about being who I am, no matter what they throw, questions, doubts, or lights. I've stood in harder places than this. He stares, processing, his clipboard limp in his hand. She'd stood firm, not with noise or fanfare, but with stillness, a strength that didn't need to shout. As she leaves, the studio dims, her calm lingering like a fragrance in the air. Faith, she knows, isn't for display. It's for living. A quiet fire that burns steady when the cameras fade. Karoline's words ripple beyond the set, past the cables and the crew. This isn't just faith. It's identity. Raw and real. It's standing tall in a world that wants to box you in, label you, measure you by what it can see. It's actions over symbols, truth over noise. A life built on what's felt, not flaunted. For those who hear her, it's a call, simple yet deep. Hold your ground. Live your belief, not for the crowd, but for the quiet moments that define you. Let the world catch up, or not. The quiet strength within outlasts every judgment, every glare, every question. As she walks away, her silhouette framed against the fading lights, her message settles like dust after a storm. She'd learned this long ago, in a life of small, unseen acts, mending fences, feeding strays, sitting with the broken. Faith doesn't need a stage. It thrives in the shadows, in the choices no one applauds. The screen fades, her voice an echo. True power hides in the unseen, in kindness when no one watches, in staying steady when the world demands a show. And as the frame goes black, one question burns, sharp and alive. How do you live your truth in a world desperate to define it? Thank you for watching till the end video. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you did, don't hesitate to like the video and share it with your friends too. Subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell for more fascinating stories.